So let's jump into our message now, though, for today, right? And that's the title of my message today is A Fight Worth Fighting. A Fight Worth Fighting. And I wanted to tell you guys a story. Back when I was in early high school, late junior high, we went to summer camp, and there was a speaker there. His name was Pat Schatzline. And we came back home from summer camp, and he was actually speaking at like a revival service. Now, if you're younger, you don't know like what revival services were, but it was like we would you'd have an evangelist who would come in, and they would speak like Sunday morning, and then they would speak Sunday night, and then like Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, right? And we'd have these long services. And I could not tell you 90% of what this guy talked about. But I remember the last sermon that he gave, and I remember the altar call that came along with it because it was so impactful and so inspiring, and it's been something that's kind of kept me going over the years at different times in ministry. And he talked about the Navy SEALs and how when Navy SEALs start their training, they have this bell, and they have to ring this bell, and ringing that bell is their declared intent to be a SEAL, to fight for the country, to be a part of this, this core, this brotherhood of Navy SEALs, and to do this thing. And if at any point in time throughout the training becomes too difficult, they're allowed to go ring this bell again, and they have to ring it a certain number of times, and as they're ringing the bell, when they're, they want to quit, they want to give up, if they ring the bell once, all the guys are, no, don't quit, stick with us, don't stop. And if they, they're going to get, no, please don't, we don't, and then they, when they ring it that third time, then everybody just stops and turns their back, and they walk away, and this guy's out. And it's just because their training is intense, right? We really don't know. I know they've done documentaries and stuff on what they do. I promise you, they're not showing you everything because they wouldn't do that, right? But you always hear guys who have known guys who are Navy SEALs as if they're these just tough as nails guys, right? These are not the people that you mess with. I saw a magic special, David Blaine or whatever, was training with them for just how to breathe and how to hold his breath, and the kind of breathing training these guys go through is just incredible. But the whole point of the guy's sermon was the first time they rang the bell was this declared intent for a purpose, right? I'm ringing this bell to say I declare my intent to be a SEAL, to be a part of this group, to fight for my country, to do what is necessary for my country. And so part of the altar call that he gave that night was he had us all come up and ring the bell and then declare what it was that we felt our call was to. What were we being called to? And so, people are coming up, and they're ringing the bell, and they're saying everything, and, I just remember getting up, and, you're kind of well, what am I going to say, right? I know, I don't want to be left out, I want to be a part of this. And I got up there, and the closer I got, I just kind of understood what I was supposed to do. So I went up there, and I remember ringing the bell and saying, my generation. And realizing now, at that age, I didn't understand the fullness of what that means, right? And the fullness of what I was even saying there, and now understanding, what that really means to say, I feel called to my generation, right? I feel called to this group of people. I couldn't have understood it then, but I can understand it now. And I remember ringing that bell and being so compelled and not knowing where my generation would go and not knowing where the generation beneath me, where they would go, what they would choose to do, the way that they would choose to see things. And understanding that they're a fight worth fighting for. They are people worth fighting for. That there are things in our lives that we know are worth fighting for. Right? If you're a Disney fan, you understand that, all these guys who are going away to war, all they want is a girl worth fighting for, right? And we talk about that. Guys are willing to fight for girls, right? Guys are willing to do some of the dumbest stuff in the world to get a girl's attention. May have told you guys before, I have a titanium screw in my foot because I was trying to impress a girl, okay? I've injured myself, I've done, just guys will do anything crazy to try and get a girl's attention. Because to them, it's a cause worth fighting for. It's a cause worth doing something. And I'm here to tell you today, there is a cause worth fighting for, and yet we as a church have not been fighting it. We haven't been fighting right. See, as believers, we know that prayer matters and that it's vitally important, but yet so often we have prayer lives that are boring, selfish, and safe. We don't really pray hard, we don't pray deep, we don't pray long, we don't do any of those things. And I read a book recently that really challenged me on this, and as I was reading the book, I really realized, I'm like, man, my prayer life is so boring, right? It's boring. But here's a question that was posed by the book, and it said, if every prayer you prayed this week was answered with a yes, what would be different in the world today? What would be different if everything you prayed was prayed? Yes, some of you guys would have rolled in here in a nice new sports car. Some of you guys, you would have no more debt. Hey, maybe somebody you know would have experienced an accident. I don't know. Hopefully not, but we can be real. We can be honest. Sometimes we don't pray good things for people. But how would our world really look different? Would we see an end to strife? Would we see an end to problems? Would we see an end to poverty, or would we see an end to people going hungry? Would we see hundreds of thousands of people returning to church or coming to God for the first time? What would be different if our prayers were answered yes? Talked a little bit last week about everything that was going on in the country, and like everything going on and how it was weighing on me one day, and I just had to pull away, and I had to get alone, and I had to go pray, and I'm embarrassed to say that it took something getting to that point for me to get to that point. And but I remember being up there, and I remember being praying and talking to God and going, God, what is going on? And him kind of speaking to me and saying, Josh, I wonder what more has to happen before the church will return to prayer. It was kind of like, what more has to happen before the church will come back to its knees and will begin to pray again, and not just like, Lord, we ask that you would work everything out, but like be fervent intercessors again. To be people who would be committed to prayer, committed to spending time in prayer, committed to gathering together to pray, committed to these things. Because I'll be completely honest with you guys. I spend way too much time complaining and not enough time praying. I spend way too much time yelling about all the things that make me upset, complaining about all the things and all the ways that I know better, than I spend time praying about it. It's just one of those ways that God began to show me some of the areas of my life where I need to change. See, Ephesians 6:10 through 12, and then verse 18 say this. It says, a final word, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. And then jumping down to verse 18, it says, pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere. So here we see this thing. He's calling us to remember. He's calling us to refocus. He's calling us to realize, this is your first blank, that we have to remember who our enemy is. We have to remember who our enemy is. That our enemy is not the people that we disagree with. Our enemy is not all those people who hold an opposite view. They're not all those people who we can't stand. They're not all these people, and we watch them, we see the news, and we see all these things, and we're going, oh, these people, I don't understand what's going on, or how dare they this, or how dare they that, no matter which side of the spectrum you fall on. Okay, your enemy is not that other person. Our enemy is the devil. That's who the enemy is. And in order to fight your enemy, you have to understand his tactics. You have to understand his strategies. You have to understand the things he's trying to do. What's he trying to do right now? He's trying to get you so angry and so focused on everything going on in the world that you don't want to pray for those people that you disagree with. Unless it's, God, I pray they get what they have coming to them, so then they'll have to learn. No, that's not who we're called to be. Understand this. The enemy wants to distract you from what he is doing to get you focused on fighting the people we are called to reach. He's a magician working sleight of hand. I'm going to do this over here so you're not paying attention to what's going on over here. Oh, and by the way, now that I've done this, you're so angry at all these people, you wouldn't pray for them. You're not praying for them. You're not looking for ways to reach them. You hope that something bad happens. You hope that they fall flat on their face. All of these things. We end up fighting the people we're called to reach. Understand this. The last thing that the enemy wants is a praying church. I'll tell you this. He is okay with a church that doesn't pray. He is okay with a church that meets, that sings a few songs, that listens to a message, and leaves, and nothing changes. Nothing happens. That doesn't bother him at all. We like to say, the church in America is under attack. I would venture to say that very few churches in America are actually under attack, because I think very few churches in America are actually doing anything worth attacking. We don't pray. Not really. The world is getting darker, the world is getting evil, but that's because we're not standing in the gap. We're not fighting for them. We got away from fighting against flesh and blood, and we started fighting flesh and blood instead of fighting against principalities and powers, against fighting against the enemy. Instead of doing that, we started fighting flesh and blood and then wondered why everything happened the way that it did. We've messed up. 1 Peter 5:8 says this. It says, stay alert and watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. It's saying, what does he say? Stay alert. Be watchful. Be ready. Be ready. You got to be looking. You got to stay vigilant. And again, this doesn't mean that you're actually going to see a real roaring lion show up that you're going to have to run from. This means be vigilant, be mindful that when you see that post on social media that makes you so angry, that you don't stoop to the level of whatever is being said, and then instead you shut it off and you go spend time praying about it. God, give me peace. God, help me to know the right words to say and the time to say them. Lord, make me an effective witness of you. Lord, help those people, God, who don't know you. Help them to find you. Lord, use me. Use other people in their lives. God, bring people around them. That should be our reaction. Not spewing back the same venom that is spewed our way. The second thing we have to do in fighting a fight worth fighting is we have to commit to the fight. I'll tell you, as a wrestler in high school, if I wasn't committed to the match, if I didn't go out there wanting to win with the intent that I was going to stick it out till the end, no matter what, I would lose. Unless I was just, head and shoulders in ability better than someone. I'll never forget, it was my sophomore year. I wrestled a kid early on in the year, and he beat me quickly. Soundly beat me. Pinned me in like a minute and a half or something like that. In the course of the remainder of the year, my coach pushed us hard. My coaches were former military. They were former Army Rangers. I mean, these guys were tough guys, and they pushed us to be tough, to have a level of mental and physical endurance that could stand through the entire match, so that the reason sometimes that our team would win was because at the end of a 6-minute wrestling match, we had more gas in the tank than they did. So let's fast forward to the end of the year, the district tournament. I come up against this kid again, who, like I said, has already beat me handily. And I went out there, and for 6 minutes, we wrestled. And at the end of 6 minutes, I prevailed, because at the end, I still had more gas in the tank, because I was willing to stick it out. I was willing to push just a little bit harder. I was committed to the match. There was something on the line. A trip to the regional tournament was on the line. I had to stay in it. The adverse is also true when we're not committed. My wife tells a story of when she was at a martial arts tournament, and they made her wait till late into the night to fight, and she had like a trip to Disneyland planned on the other side and all this kind of stuff. She told me, she's like, I got up, she's like, I threw the fight. I didn't even care. I was so tired. I'd already placed. And she goes, people came up to me afterwards and go, I've never seen you fight, but I know you've got to be better than that. My wife is an incredible martial artist. Okay, like third in the nation a couple times, like asked to join the Olympic team, like 3rd-degree black belt. Like, she's scary good. I'll tell you a story. When we were dating, and I was like, I want you to teach me stuff, right? Like, I've loved martial arts my whole life. Like, I want to learn. And she's like, all right. So she was showing me some stuff, and she showed me this one move that they do where she would grab, and it's called the dobok if it's in Taekwondo, just so you guys know. So don't no one like try to correct me, because they all call them different things and get very confusing. But she grabbed, I think at that time I wasn't even wearing a dobok though, it was just a shirt. And she grabbed it, and she's like, this would be your dobok. And she's like, what I'd do is I'd grab you, and I would kind of toss you back, and I'd kick you in the stomach. And she just showed me, and she lightly tapped me. But I'm telling you, her hands had barely left my shirt before her leg hit my stomach. I was never so scared in my life, at the same time being like, you're beautiful, we should get married, because that's just incredible, right? I mean, like, it was a weird thing, but she was committed to martial arts, and when we're committed to a fight, we stick in it. We stick in it even when it gets hard, okay? We have to be committed to the fight. We have to be committed to going after people. We have to be committed to spending time in prayer, to spending extended amounts of time in prayer. We have to say, we are going to pray until something happens. We're not going to let up. We're not going to stop. We're not going to let ourselves get discouraged. We're going to gather with other Christians who are going to hold us up and hold the line. We're not going to stop until something happens. Because the truth is, if you don't fight for the souls of your friends, family, this state, this country, our community, if we don't fight, friends, who will? If I don't fight for my children in prayer, who will? If I don't fight for my family members who are far from God in prayer, who will? Who's going to stand there? Who is going to do that? We have to lead that charge. We have to be committed. And committed doesn't mean that you're in it until it gets rough. It means even when it gets rough, you keep pushing through. That's committed. That's committed to something in prayer. Finally, we have to gather together to fight. We have to gather together to fight. In Acts chapter 12, the church really begins to face some persecution. They've already killed Stephen. Peter and James are out and they're preaching, and they capture them and they kill James. And when they see how excited people are that they put James to death with a sword, they're like, all right, we got this. And they've got Peter locked up in jail. And of course, when the church hears this, they run, they scatter, they don't do anything, right? No. When the church hears this, what do? They gather together and they have a prayer meeting. And they are praying, and they are praying, and they are praying, and they are praying. And what happens? God sends an angel to set Peter free, and the angel leads him out of the jail and leads him all the way up. Peter thinks he's having a dream until he gets out of the jail and realizes, oh man, this is real. This angel led me out. And he goes and he knocks on the door, and this servant girl comes, and she goes, oh, hey, Peter's outside. And they're in the midst, she has to go interrupt the prayer meeting that's praying for Peter to tell them, hey, Peter's outside. Somebody told her he didn't think that she was just dreaming or something. Hopefully that wasn't the guy leading the prayer meeting. But they were having a meeting. They were praying for Peter in the moment he was released. If you read the accounts of the early church in Acts, when something happened, what did they do? They continued to pray for each other. They continued to pray that something would happen. They prayed and they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. How does Paul end a lot of his letters? Pray for me as I do this. Pray for me as I am suffering for Christ. Pray for me as I am a prisoner of Christ, that I may be effective here. He continued to ask for their prayer. Why? Because prayer changes things. Because prayer makes us effective. Because prayer refocuses us. It keeps our eyes on what our eyes are supposed to be on. If we spent more time praying for those people we disagreed with than we did arguing with them, I think we'd see a lot more happen. Because something happens when the church gathers to pray. Something happens. But we have to come expecting and prepared to wait on God. We have to come expecting and prepared to wait on God. We can't show up thinking it's just going to be like every other prayer meeting where we're going to come, we're going to sit here for half an hour, we're going to hear a couple of scriptures, we're going to pray a little bit, and we're going to go home thinking, that was good, I feel like I fulfilled my spiritual quota for the day, or I feel better about myself, I went to prayer meeting. No, we have to come expecting and believing that God is going to do something. As a youth pastor, I've taken, I don't know how many kids to camp. my time when I was a youth pastor. And it was always amazing to see the kind of things that God would do at camp in the lives of students. God rocked my life at summer camp, called me into ministry at summer camp. God did all kinds of crazy stuff at summer camp. And I can't tell you how many times you'd be driving home in the van after service, or after camp, you'd be on our way home, and you'd hear a kid, how come what happens at summer camp can't happen here? And we'd always sit down with them and tell them, it can. The only difference between what God does at summer camp and what God can do at church on a Sunday or a Wednesday night or any other time is you come expecting it. You came in believing that God was going to be at work in your life. You came in believing God was going to do something crazy. You came in ready, willing. I remember being at a summer camp so much, where you couldn't wait for the guy to stop preaching just because you wanted to get to the altar. You wanted to experience the power of God. I remember that kind of stuff. And yet, why is it then that when we're like, hey, we're going to have a prayer meeting, everyone's like, oh, I think I have to wash my hair. Right? For those of you who are a little younger, that was like an excuse girls used to give guys to not go out with them. I have to wash my hair that night. Right? I have to do this. I can't make it. I can't do those things. I can't, I don't want to do that, right? I'm going to tell you right now, I've had conversations with people, they should have told me, prayer meetings are boring, I don't want to go. And if that's your attitude, it's probably going to be pretty boring for you if you did come. But if you came expecting God to do something, and you came prepared to wait, which means I'm not going to show up and expect that in half an hour, God's Spirit is just going to show up, move mightily, and I'm good, because that's all the time I've allotted for this. But if I showed up prepared, ready, willing, and expecting to wait and to spend a lot more time with Him, then yeah, things are going to happen. We're going to see things happen. We have to come, friends, we have to come prepared to fight. We have to come prepared to go to war. We have to come prepared to do something for people. That we say, we are committed to this. This is the line here. We are going to hold that line in prayer, and we are going to push forward. One of my favorite songs in kids' church growing up was, I went to the enemy's camp and I took back what he stole from me. Church, that's what we need to do. We need to go to war. We need to get committed to a fight worth fighting for. Because if we don't do it, no one will. It's our job. It's our mission. It's our call to reach a world full of people our job to fight against the spiritual hosts of wickedness, in the heavenly realm, against principalities, against powers. It's our job to step in and fight for people who couldn't fight because they don't even know who the real enemy is. The Bible says that while we were still enemies of God, Christ died for us. So if we're going to live by His example, then while other people might still consider themselves our enemies, we need to stand in the gap and pray for them. That's who we are called to be. That's who we're supposed to be.
Thank you for watching Abundant Life Church. If you found this teaching helpful, please subscribe to our page and share us with a friend. Also, please consider giving at nwlife.org.